Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm David. Joined today at work, not at the layout. So unfortunately there's no trains going to be running past me in the background of this introduction. Today's video is going to be all about the storage yard, laying the track, getting point motors working in terms of servos as point motors, and then also starting to talk about automation and some of the electronics I've done, and a lot of wiring, so bus wires, dropper wires, all that sort of stuff gets mentioned throughout this video. It's probably going to end up being quite a mammoth video. I'm not too sure how long it's going to be as I've just started the edit, but I feel like it's going to be a long one, so sit back, get a cup of tea, get some biscuits and watch it, or if there's only certain things you're interested in, feel free to skip along at the bottom. I'll put the timestamp markers in the description. I thought I'd start today by just sort of discussing some of the ethos behind this storage yard that I'm building, and also talking a little bit about the track plan, although I think I will be doing a full track plan video at some point in the near future, as it's changed quite a bit since the last full track plan video that I actually did. So for those that don't know, the previous layout I did was the first layout I'd done for a while, for several years, and I did that in lockdown. My parents then moved and I had to dismantle that layout. Also, I'm at work, my circumstances have changed. So that led me to designing a few different sort of dream layouts that I never really thought I'd start to make. One of those was this 10-foot by 12-foot circuit with quite a large storage yard, based on using all of the points I had from the previous layout, so code 100 track. There's a full video on that design, I'm pretty sure, and then that's since expanded, I think, a couple of times. I've changed my mind. And I've ended up with this 17-foot by 12-foot circuit with a motive power depot, a branch line station, which is actually going to go in above the storage yard, up an incline, and this nice long scenic run on either side. And again, I'll go fully into all of the details of this in the future, but I thought I'd just talk about this to show you why the storage yard is as it is. So what I've gone for is several loops on each main line. So I think I've got 4 storage loops on one line and 3 storage loops on the other, and that's not including 2 main lines themselves. And now this allows me to have trains parked up in the loops and other stuff running on the main lines as well. I've then also added at the one end in the top, we've got some DMU sidings. Then below the main lines I've got 3 more little sidings, so that's enough for a loco and 2 coaches, I think possibly a push loco and 3, and that's for some really short cameo trains that I've got planned. So currently the layout is in my parents' loft, and this means I've only got room for the 12-foot scenic section that you've seen me working on. That's 3 scenic modules, and now this 12-foot storage yard, so that's 12 foot, but I think it's 2.5 foot deep. So this obviously isn't the full layout of 17 feet by 12 feet, and that'll be coming in the future when I can move it into an outbuilding, a shed, a garage, somewhere at my own house whenever I get round to getting one. But yeah, so because it's in the loft, I've had to have some temporary solutions. So you'll see that throughout the start of this video. Looking at the track plan, the section that's meant to have the ladder of points on at the sort of right hand side of the storage yard, it's meant to be 5 foot long. There's only space for about 2 feet of that in the loft before it hits quite an essential beam that can't be moved out of the way. So I've had to compress that end. Now that does mean a lot of my trains are cut down from 8 coaches to 6. Or however many goods wagons that is reduced by. This is a good starting place to be able to start operating the layout from. So talking of operating the layout, I've been inspired by Charlie Bishop at Chadwick Model Railway and also David Townend at McKinley Model Railway to do something called scenic trains. So if you've not watched their channels, the idea is that you can have automation to kind of run a handful, I don't know how many I'm going to end up with, but probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 certainly different trains that can go around the loops, around the main lines, whilst you're doing other things. So I'm going to end up with the branch line station, where I'll be able to operate trains by hand, and the motive power depot, where I'm going to be able to run things in and out into fueling points, into cleaning sidings, into sheds and things like that. So there'll be plenty of operational interest, but I'm hoping to have trains running themselves around the main lines whilst I'm doing this. Now throughout this video I mentioned MERG, which is the Model Electronic Railway Group. No affiliation other than the fact I'm a member, I pay my annual fees, and that gives me access to their designs, their PCBs, their kits, and effectively it's a much cheaper way of doing automation. So right, that's enough ranting from me. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Like and comment and tell me what you thought of it, and yeah, let's get into it. I can't remember what I actually got done on that one weekend that I managed to visit home. I think it was just laying these points down here,
What I've started to do then is just continue these curves around here, trying to maintain a minimum radius of third radius, hopefully. It might dip around maybe 2.5 radius if there's such a thing. That should be fine for all of sort of modern locos. And I'm going to get the tracks running around this fiddle yard is my plan. You'll see we've run into an issue, or I've run into an issue, where when I laid this junction, I laid it first because it's the most complex bit, I must have mismeasured very slightly, and this point here hangs off. It's just by the end of the sleepers really, so I will be extending this board by 18mm that way, and I'm just hoping I don't run into the same issue over there, otherwise I'm not sure what I'll do. Now obviously this end board is temporary and will be removed, so this track work doesn't really matter, it can be as messy as I want, but this board will be part of the final layout, so I'd like to get this side looking really good. So my current plan then is to just lay all of the curves across this join, put a load of PCB sleepers, cut through the rails, and then I'll be able to remove these two boards and take them outside, because it is the height of summer. I mean, today's not a particularly sunny day, but it is still 25 degrees up here, so I want to get out into the garden hopefully and work on these boards. Okay, so my master plan has been foiled slightly. I did take this board downstairs already. That's ready to start getting wired up, but what I wanted to do was put these two boards together, lay the rest of the track, do that little extension I talked about 18mm on the back, and then wire them up. But I've been waylaid. Now, as this is over a curve, I would really like to put a lot of copper-clad sleepers underneath, but I've run out. So I've got an order in at Rails of Sheffield, literally just put it in, and I'm hoping that'll come probably the day after tomorrow. And yeah, what I actually did at the same time, I thought, why not? I bought all the track for the branch line station. Now, I don't know if I will be laying that track in this next fortnight I've got at my parents', but we'll see. So right, I think I'm going to go and crack on with something else for the next couple of days until I can come back and keep laying this track.
3 days later.
Okay, so I've got this baseboard outside. You can see I've added 18mm to the back. Now this is just because those points were getting awfully close to the rear edge there. I glued down PCB sleepers and hot glued down the ends here because they're on a curve. You can see these are all loose, ready to be curved to the right angle and pinned down. Then I've just started laying these points here. So these are wired up, they just need tacking down. Then I've got 2 more points to go in. And then a heck of a lot of flexi to lay. Apologies for the wind. I'm working outside just because I've got much easier access to all sides of the board. I've also put it nice and high off the ground, so it's all at chest height. I'm not having to bend over. Probably much better for my back. But yeah, I will keep you posted throughout the day as I get this all laid. Okay, so it's actually 2 days later, I think. Yesterday was a rainy day, and I spent a lot of time making some circuit boards, and I'll show you those shortly. But today, sunny again, so I've got the track back out. I've only got the one board out. I did end up finishing laying all of that track that I said I would, but by the time I was done, I think it was getting dark or it was raining or something. There was some reason I didn't film, but here's some photos of that. So I've got all of this track laid here that you can see. So this nice scissor crossing, the throat of the storage yard tracks. Then we've got 3 sidings back here for multiple units, 3 sidings down here for locos and various shorter trains. And then of course on the other side is just all of the curved track. Today's focus though is going to be on starting to wire this up. I'm really hoping that by the end of today I'll have at least this board wired up, hopefully the other board as well, and I can start getting in and doing some of the computer programming. Now those of you who don't know, this layout is actually going to be automated using MERG, so Model Electronic Railway Group, using some of their circuit boards and PCBs. But some of the methodology will be valid for any layout, so I will be showing you exactly how I do my wiring, and you can take from that what you will. I flipped the board over, and as you can see, we've already got some wires in, so these are the droppers coming off of the points. All of my points are Electrofrog, so they've of course got the frog wire and 2 wires either side. I decided to colour code each section of the layout. So this storage yard section should be orange and grey. You can see I did manage to slip in a few red and black wires here when I accidentally forgot the colour code, but that shouldn't be too much of an issue. So my first stage then is going to be Actually, I think to install some point motors, just so I can see where they all go, and that will help me position some of the sort of what I'm going to call the brains, the boards that have the actual PCBs on. So I'm going to go grab those point motors and we can start getting them installed. Okay, so for point motors, as you can see, there's 17 points to put in just in this board alone, so it's going to be a lot of points to control in the layout as a whole. I've decided to go with servos. Now, these are just really cheap servos from Amazon. I can't remember exactly what I paid, but it really wasn't much per unit as compared to buying point motors. Even if you start getting the Pico solenoid point motors or the Gauge Master Seep point motors, by the time I started adding sort of the electronics I want to be able to automate all that, it's getting quite expensive. Now, with the Merg system, here you can see some electronics I built yesterday whilst it was raining. So we've got CAN servo boards. You can get something similar. I believe it's from Megapoint controllers, and they offer their own servo boards. And then I've got these mounts again from Merg. These are 3D printed kits. I've just assembled 17 here, and it's time to get going. So my plan then is to install these point motors, and that will let me know roughly where to position these boards. And these are what I'm going to be calling, as I said, the brains. So we've got a CAN servo, and there's a gap here for a current detection board for my block detection to help with computer automation. Okay, it took longer than I'd care to admit, but I've got 15 of those 17 point motors installed. The last two are ones, if I just flip this board down, I somehow managed to line them up with a beam that goes across here. Now, as these are quite minor points that just lead into the extra storage, they're not on any of these running lines. I figure I'll cut my losses and I'll work that out at a later date, or maybe later this week, I'm not too sure. There was one, however, this one down here was far too close to this side here. As you can see, after a lot of messing about, I do have a working solution for that one. I've got a slightly cleaner solution for this one, again, that's on the edge of the board here, and I'll work out these two at a later date. Now, the process for installing those point motors really is to link that servo up to the Merg board, and then using the computer I can test its throw from side to side, just make sure it's working, and I can set it to one end or the other. I took that opportunity as well to adjust the micro switch that will be switching the frog. Okay, then flip the board over, see where that lines up, and you can actually see where the throw bar of the point lies within the hole, and you can align the point in that direction. Then it's just a case of putting a couple screws in, and then finally giving it a test, again with just that Merg configurator program, and seeing that it all works. Okay, so the next step is going to be the bus wires, but before I get there I thought I'd show you my Interboard connector. I designed the PCB myself and sent it to PCBWay to be manufactured, and it just allows me to use a standard 24-pin connector, like you get for a computer power supply. Cut it in half, it's just an extension cut in half, and I have one side which is male, one side which is female. If I just pull it apart there, you can see that provides me with 24 pins at a relatively decent current rating as well. This board then just breaks that out into terminal strips that make the connections easier underneath the layout. Then I've also connected some LEDs that just show me my two 12-volt power supplies are going across the baseboard connection. This is quite useful as it just makes me aware that these two connections are driven fully home. I've also got the facility on here to add a 120 ohm terminating resistor for the Cbus, which will mean something to anyone who uses the Merg equipment. Now, the reason I designed this myself is because I was fed up of using pluggable terminal blocks and all those sorts of other options. There's plenty of other options out in the market, but they can be quite expensive, so I came up with my own solution. Anyway, I'm going to move on and let's get some bus wires installed. For the bus wires themselves, I'm just using some 3202 wire. This is from, let me just check. This is from railwayscenics.com or .co.uk. So it's 11 different colours, which is really useful for me because I happen to need 11 different colours. Of course, you can just be buying your black and red if that's all you need. But in my case, I've colour-coded my layout. So yeah, check out their website. They've got all sorts of different wires, as well as scenery items and other electronics. So yeah, right, I'm going to set about twisting these together in a fashion that I shall show you now. Okay, so in this case I'm twisting together some yellow and blue, which are my chosen colours for 12 volts. So I've got one end in the vise here, clamped to the sawhorse, and the other end just in the chuck of the drill. Simply pull it taut and give it a good spin. Okay, so after a bit of fun with the drill, all my bus wires are prepared. For those of you thinking of that age-old saying, there's only 2 wires in DCC, I assure you there are only 2 wires. They're just repeated a couple times. So all these wires here are for track. This is because I'm going to be dividing my track into what's called districts. So this means this wire's for the branch line. This wire is for the engine depot area. This is my main line, just running around the main loop. And this here is for the storage yard. Now the reason they're split up is eventually I'm going to be building what are called district power cutouts. So for example, if a train derails in the storage yard tracks over here, that'll only take out the old orange and grey bus wire, leaving the rest for running. So if I have a train derailed here, I could be running something in the branch line, or I could be running something in the future engine depot when I get around to building it. But yeah, so that's this pile of wire. We've then got a classic yellow and blue here. This is 12 volts, so this is a 12 volt, I think about 6 amps that I have just running all the way around the layout. It's useful for lighting, for powering my electronics boards, for powering the servos now that I'm using as point motors. Just a really useful 12 volts that runs around the entire layout. Then finally, this is very specific to MERG, the Model Electronic Railway Group. This is the Cbus, so this has its own 12 volts plus 2 signal wires, 2 communications wires. Think of this as like your Loco net or your NCE net, whatever the hell that's called, or what I used to use with Lens, the Lens Express net. This is the MERG equivalent of that. So again, this is all 32/02 wire, nice and thick. Hopefully that means there's very little voltage drop around the layout. So I'm now going to cut this to length and get them installed on the bottom of the layout. Another quick tip for bus wires, or any wire you're actually terminating in a terminal block or a terminal board on a PCB, is to use bootlace ferrules. These were bought on Amazon a long time ago, as you can tell by the fact they're very well mixed. It means I've dropped them a couple of times. You just slide them onto the end of your wire there after selecting an appropriate size. Comes with this tool. There won't be a link in the description, as I do feel like that's just trying to sell you stuff, but if you just search bootlace ferrules on Amazon, you'll come up good. You can see there is a finished crimped article. Probably give it a couple of squeezes, unlike what I just did, to get it properly crimped on there, and that is a much better end to go into a terminal block. Okay, so the light is fast fading, but I've got those bus wires in. I've used what are called P-clamps or cable clamps, cable clips. You can get these from, I got mine from CPC Farnell. Pretty sure you can get them on Amazon, eBay, wherever you want. But yeah, you can see bus wires going from Interboard connector all down the other end to the next one. My next job is going to be to actually label up all of these servos so I know which points are which, and that will let me position the servo control boards where I know they're next to the points they have to control. Then I'll get those servos wired up, at which point I'll probably have to move inside to get some better lighting, and I'm just going to persevere as late into the evening as I can dare, adding dropper wires then. Okay, so I've moved inside now. It's getting too dark outside. You can see I've positioned these boards, so I've got A here, B here, and C there. All of those, so they've got the servo control boards on, and they're just missing their block detection boards. So I'm about 2/3 of the way through soldering those up, but once they're soldered up, they can be put in place. So what I've done for now is just connect these servos that can reach their boards. I just put a couple of cable ties on there. For these servos that can't reach their boards, I'll be showing you a trick just shortly. I've bought a custom extension kit. But what I think I'm going to do first is just try and get some of these wires out of the way. So all of these frog wires are really long. I'm just going to solder those onto each of the micro switches here. And then all of these dropper wires, I might try and work out something to do with those. Okay, so it's the next day, back outside again. Lovely sunshine. You can see I'm making progress here. So for these servos, what I've been doing, as I said, was tidying up the wires. So all of those green frog wires, they're attached to the micro switch, which is just there on the servo mount. Then you see the 2 wires that go to the bottom of the point. They go to either side of the micro switch, and it's sort of daisy chained together to this wire, which goes back to the bus. So you can see on the bus wire there, all I've done is solder directly to the bus, and I've put on what's called liquid electrical tape, just to cover it up. So it's basically like a bitumen. You buy it in a little pot, got it from Amazon, and that covers that up nicely. You see then coming along, I've got the servo wires coming off, and here is an extension, and it comes all the way up to the servo control board. Extension wise, you can buy extensions of various lengths. I've used this kit to create my own. So all you do is you cut the wire to the length you want, you use pliers to squeeze on or crimp on the metal pieces that go on the end, and then you slot it into the plastic enclosure, and you have a custom length extension. You can see that comes up to the servo control board. And then again, you can see I've spliced into this bus wire here, comes down here, and I've spliced into the 12-volt bus, and that powers that board. And you can see I've repeated the same thing on this board here. So we've got all of these wires that go to the bottom of the points. They're daisy chained between each micro switch, and then eventually I've got just the one wire, or the one pair, going back to the bus. Okay, so we keep building up the layers here. I've just got in a load of grey droppers here. So again, there's no block detection on these, so it literally goes from the bus wire, just minding the liquid electrical tape there, straight up to a Wago block, where it then goes out. So you've got 3 tracks there, 3 tracks down there. There's a lone track just in here, going straight up to the bus wire. And then there's all of the end tracks there, again just going into a Wago and then straight up into the bus wire. So what I'm going to do now is flip it over. I might give it a quick test. I'm not actually sure. I think a lot of the what I'm going to call the orange tracks, the tracks that are going to be on block detection, I think some of them are already live, just through fish plates and things. So I might give it a quick test. Then I'm going to cut a lot of the rails to make the different blocks for the block detection. Okay, so as you saw there, I just gave everything a quick test. As always, a few problem areas. I had a short first thing over on, I think it was on B7. That's just due to the micro switch underneath. If I just take a peek, you can barely see under there. But basically, the servo wasn't coming over far enough to hit the micro switch. Easily fixable, I'll just move that micro switch over slightly. Back on top here, there was some slight wobbling on the verge of derailment on this point here, and I seem to remember this is the point I heated up too much and this bit of rail came out slightly, so I'll just fettle that in a little bit. I don't think it's quite at the right angle or the right gauge there, so I'll fix that. There wasn't really a derailment, but it nearly did, which I noticed. Coming over here, there is still a short on the scissor crossing. I think it's coming from this Insual Frog diamond in the middle, so I'm going to do what I've done on one side already. You see here there's some liquid electrical tape just on the frog there. I'm just going to do that on pretty much all the frogs, just extend them ever so slightly, stop any shorts. Other than that, I'm pretty sure the rest of it was all good. 1 or 2 dead spots about, but that's obviously because I've got none of the droppers in on the rear rails, so the orange rails as I'll call them, because they have block detection on them, and that's probably the next thing I'm going to do. Just for testing purposes, all I've been using is the Merg configurator tool, so it's not the best way, hence why I've got all these points labelled up, and then there's a few moments throughout that footage where I'm just staring at the screen trying to work out which point I'm doing, because there's no intuitive diagram on here. It's literally just a list and I was scrolling through and finding them. Anyway, right, time to get some more droppers in, I think. Okay, so for those who don't understand block detection or who've never heard of it, basically the idea is we'll be sending some signals into the laptop that detect where a train is. And the key bit here is to be getting the trains to stop before they run out at the end of the siding. So my idea is a train will run all the way around the layout and come back in. It'll have a sensor at the start that says this train is now entering its storage loop. Sensor in the middle, just to say this storage loop is occupied. Then a sensor at the end that will tell it where to stop. Now to work this out, I've no idea if this is the right thing. I'm going to give it a go, and if it doesn't work, we'll go back to the drawing board. But what I've done is I've used these two coaches here. These are, I believe, Mark II A's or Mark II B's. And using those, I've put these little dashed lines at the point where everything has to stop. So, for example, on this track, if this coach was here, you could have a train go past in all directions and it wouldn't hit it. So obviously the siding ends all the way over here, but here it's fouling, and then just as it gets here, nothing hits it, and it can happily park there. Then what I've done is I've added a safety margin, and I've just used this bit of wood, random length, and this is where I'm going to put my cut. The idea being that when my loco comes along, it's driving along, it hits the cut, and it has all of this room to stop. Now I'm going to make sure there's absolutely no deceleration on this stop. The idea being it will be slowing down already, slowing down, bang, stop. That is my idea. Hopefully it works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a slitting disc and cut through all those marks. Then I'm either going to put an insulating rail joiner in, or if that's too much of a faff, I might just put in some glue. I've seen both methods used before. You just want to hold it together so the track doesn't come out of alignment, and also make sure the tracks can't move together and start touching and making electrical contact. Okay, so once again it's getting dark outside, so I'm going to move inside shortly. You can see I've just slit through the rails there, and then just use some hot glue actually to sort of wedge the end of the rail in place, and it's actually really solid. So I don't think there's any chance that they're going to slip together and touch, and I don't think it's going to go out of gauge. Again, if this all goes horribly wrong, it's only a railway. I can fix it at a later date. This idea came from Markland of Sweden, who he slits his rail, and then I think he uses like araldite or something like that, a similar glue. But I thought, sod it, I'll give hot glue a go, and it seems to have worked really, really well actually. Probably the easier way around this is just to cut them whilst you're laying the track and put insulated rail joiners in, and I have done that in a few other places already. In fact, all of the scenic track I've laid has got insulated rail joiners put in place where I know I need a block. But for over here, I figured I'd lay it and work out the blocks later, which is what I'm currently doing. Right, time to drill a load of holes and drop a load of droppers. I'm actually relatively efficient at doing droppers, touch wood, so I might be able to get a reasonable number of those done this evening. And then it'll be time to do the other board. I'll probably do the other board off camera, finish off those block detection modules, and then it'll be time to get it all programmed in. Okay, so having glued all of those cut segments up there, what I've done is just drilled a hole next to each of them, and I've labelled them up all according to my diagram. In the past I've used fancy labels and stuff, but for speed and ease you can see I've literally just used a Sharpie here. So next to every hole that comes through the baseboard there is a number, and that corresponds, so for example here, D6, so D is on the next board, that's a poor example. So B4, there we go, B4, come to board B, and it goes to number 4, there we go. So all I'm going to do is run a wire from each of these holes, solder it to the track, take it to the relevant chocolate block, and then hopefully tomorrow when I get those block detection boards installed, it will all line up properly with my diagram. Okay, so it's the next morning, and I did get a load of those droppers in last night, and I'll show you those shortly, but I did have to stop because I ran out of wire. This is one of the only bits of orange wire I've got left. A few other bits floating about, but not lots. So I've just popped up Pars. Now, absolutely no sponsorship here, but a few people asked me in one of my previous videos where Pars is in Lowestoft. So it's on London Road South. It's a lovely little model shop, and it's becoming more and more of a sort of a hobbyist shop. It sells airfits kits and railway bits and bobs and all of that. So I went there, got some wire. She only sells 702 wire in there, not 1602. So you can see the difference there in size. Just about see the difference there. It's no real problem, to be honest. I think it should be fine on 702. I do have probably 4 more droppers on this board to do, but then the majority of this will go on, wrong direction, on that next half of the board. So yeah, went to Pars, picked up my wire. Might have got carried away as well. Why not? So it's got a really good range of wooden scenics in there. I bought this. I'll give it a go probably in the next layout update. To clean the river, gets dust off. A couple of trees and scenery bits. and then also a 21-pin decoder. Not had much luck with Gauge Master decoders in the past, but I thought I'd give this one a go because it was reasonably priced. And that's just temporarily to go in a Class 47 I bought last time I was here. I don't know if I've shown you that. Again, I'll have to do a rolling stock update in the near future because there's a few bits and bobs I've bought. Right, something else I got on with yesterday evening after I'd run out of the orange wire was making these DTC 8As from Merck. So I've got two done here. These are the current detection modules. For those being clever, this orange wire is a different orange wire than the one I was doing the track with. This comes with the kit, and there is literally just enough to wire them up. So yeah, one more to do. I'll probably do that just now, and then it'll be time to wire them in. What these do, these are current transformers. So this is what's going to detect if there's a train in each of the sections on the track. If you're not doing block detection, you can switch off and don't worry about this, but this is probably equivalent to, you can get equivalent boards from like Digitrax and all those sorts of companies, but they're quite expensive. These themselves, I think they're only about 30 quid if you're a member of the Model Electronic Railway group, and you just have to solder them up yourselves. So right, I'm going to go finish this last board, put those last droppers in, and then I'll get these wired in. Then it might be time to give it another test and move on to the next baseboard. Okay, so it's later that evening. I've literally just carried this up to the loft, so a bit out of breath. You can see this is the second board. This only took a couple of hours to wire up. Much, much simpler. We've literally got bus wires running up. Series of grey droppers here, literally just the common side. And here we've got all of the droppers going into the feedback here that takes it to the computer. I've written a little note to myself. Imagine red droppers are orange, because I ran out of orange wire. Having literally gone to the model shop this morning to buy orange wire, I ended up running out again. I should have bought double the amount I did. I've already bolted this board back in place, but if I just get on my back, you can see how the wiring has turned out. So pretty much the only thing I've done since we last spoke, since I last recorded anything, was installed these DTC 8A. These are current transformer modules. I believe I showed you one on top of the layout. I've literally just noticed this one is broken. Okay, I'm glad I tried to show you that before I turned it on. That could have been a catastrophe. I've got these resoldered. They look quite janky, and that's because they are. I'm going to test it all works, and then I will probably fill that up with hot glue. Yeah, no idea what happened there. I do remember knocking the board over earlier this afternoon, but I didn't think it had hit on anything. But something must have perfectly come in at an angle and just impacted this area of circuit board. You can see there's a few bent components here. None of those are shorting. But anyway, looking back at the electronics themselves and exactly what they're doing. So the only thing I've added since we last spoke, since I last filmed anything, was these block detection boards. So basically these feedback through the servo boards into my computer and will allow the laptop to know where the trains are and aid in the automation. So they've all then got these orange dropper wires. This is what I bought the wire for this morning, and they feed back up into these boards. And of course on this one we've got 3 of them, and this took ages to do. On the one I did this afternoon, literally just the one down there. Right, so I'm going to give this another inspection, another once over, and make sure I've not whacked the board off anything, and then I will give it a test. Okay, so I'll give you a quick pan round. It's 2 days later. I spent yesterday doing a bit of fault finding. There's actually a few tracks down here I forgot to put insulating rail joiners in, so when I linked it up, when I turned it on, my block detection boards were going a bit haywire. But I worked that one out, and then there was one or two other issues that I've worked my way through. I also then yesterday decided to crack on with some scenery work as well, so that'll be coming in another video. Painted a back scene and started scenery. But no, just today, this morning, I spent a few hours actually trying to get my head around the Merg stuff and around Rockrail, and I might do some videos on this in the future if anyone's interested. So Rockrail is a free software for computer control and automation. And then Merg is obviously the group I'm in that gets me all of these electronics. But yeah, so all of these points down here, all 17 of them, are linked up. I can get them to work on my laptop. There's a track plan on my laptop, and I can control all of the points, which is great. Also, all of these sensors I've put in, so from there through to around here. This area has all got detection on it. So again, on my laptop, it lights up red when there is a loco there. Right, enough of all that. It's time to move on to the final board to get wired here. And you can see it's got 10 points on it. It's also got a load of blocks. Apologies for the Mark IIs just loafing around here. I'm just testing clearances, so yeah, you can see that very faint line there. Here's the line at which that coach doesn't get knocked. So yeah, I'm going to continue messing around, trying to work out clearances, get those marked up. There's a couple of blocks I need to put in here, so the same thing again. I'll be cutting through the track, hot gluing the rail into place or putting insulating rail joiners if I can. And then we've got all these wires hanging down to wire up the points, the frogs. And to do that, I'm going to be working on some of those servo motors. So again, yesterday I made 10 more servo mounts. They're currently stacked up on my desk. I was going to show you, but my desk is an absolute state at the moment. Yeah, and then just this afternoon, I watched a film and I've made 2 more servo boards. So those will be going on this board. It is only a temporary board, but I do need to get it motorised and the block protection in if I want any chance of getting this automated in the loft. And then instead of making some of my custom joiner boards, because they do take a while to make, I've chucked this together. So it's a 24 pin extension and I've cut into it and I've got my bus wires, relevant bus wires here. So I've got 12 volts, I've got track, and I've got the relevant signal wires to link these 2 boards up. Okay, so as you can see, there are some trains running, and it's 2 days later. I did a load of wiring yesterday, and I've got this board wired up. So yeah, I've gone for the old vertical bit of plywood, similar to Charlie at Chadwick Model Railway. It's a good idea, really. It just helps aid wire this up. This board is sort of in situ. It's screwed in place to this beam because it's only temporary. So that means I couldn't remove it like the other boards and take it downstairs to wire it up. So it was a right pain sort of crawling under here and wiring it all together. But you can see from that rat's nest it's all working. And if I just wait for a train to come past, you should see the LEDs lighting up. There we go. So you can see those red LEDs on these boards here, just showing that there is trains going through. I think that one's actually lit up. Yeah, that red LED there is lit up because the 4MT is on it. Oh, Heimet's going through now. So you can see, there we go, LEDs lighting up and turning off. And this is all linked back into my laptop. All the points are controlled from my laptop and all the blocks show up. There's a few more things I want to do to finish off this video. So over here, I need to repaint some of that fascia. But before I do that, I do want to add another socket just in here for my controller. So I'll show you that. And then I want to get this storage yard loaded up with all of my rolling stock. As you can see, I've got a load of rolling stock boxes down there. They're all empty. There's a load of locos in there. And then in that box there is a load of rolling stock. These drawers here have rolling stock in. Yeah, so I want to fill this up. But first, let's get that socket in. Okay, so over at the workbench, you can see it's just a simple PCB with 2 sockets on, some wires coming off. And you'll notice these wires will be familiar. This is the Cbus that I've shown you throughout this video. So what I'm going to do is drill some holes over there, get this screwed on, and then here is my custom 3D printed controller I did. It's the same as the normal Merg controller, just spread out a little bit. And I'm going to mount that over in the storage yard. Okay, so as you can see, it's actually Sunday now. I am leaving in literally about an hour. Got that socket installed, and we've got that controller here. Nice little spot to put my laptop. I might well wire it so I can have my laptop over on my desk, but that'll be something for the future. Also, here you can see I've loaded up the storage yard. These are all of my trains, my rakes of coaches and wagons that currently run. I do have a load, well, not a load more, a few more bits and bobs in storage that either need new couplings or they need work doing to them to allow them to run. For example, my HAAs, they've all still got the normal hook and link coupling. Only this one's got a KD. I've been going through the goods rake here, and just adding KDs to all of those because I wasn't really happy with how the hunts were performing. Yeah, also a couple of my locos are still off at the weathering works getting weathered, but they should be back for the next video. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed watching. Please do like and subscribe, comment any recommendations, any comments you've got, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.